Hello there. Welcome into a Tuesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app, which is free to download, free to use, sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Wellbeing for all, a veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your take on the day's topics. You could text or call, or no, text in. I am in a remote location. So text in your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Also available on social media at Gingerly Tweets on X and at Kaufman Sports on Instagram. Enough contact information. Let's get to it, shall we? Let's start with the Denver Nuggets. What are we to make of these 7 consecutive wins that this team has? Because they are right now, in terms of, they have the longest winning streak in the NBA right now. Coincidentally, also the Lakers, who I want to talk about here shortly because of a big debut last night, and the Oklahoma City Thunder are also playing extremely well. Those 3 teams right now are about the 3 hottest teams that we have going in the NBA. But I'm going to hesitate to proclaim the Nuggets back to say that they're a title contender. I mean, certainly they're on a shorter list, but they have beaten the Sixers without Embiid and George, the Hornets, the Pelicans twice, the Orlando Magic, Phoenix without KD, and now the Portland Trailblazers. And the Blazers came into last night's game playing extremely well. So I don't want to say that none of these wins matter, that these are totally garbage wins, because Portland was playing really good basketball. But not a single one of these teams that the Nuggets have beaten are at their level. Not the Mavericks, not the Lakers, not the Grizzlies or the Thunder, not Cleveland or Boston. But where you can't fault the Denver Nuggets because you play who's in front of you, right? And they have ran roughshod through these teams. Sixers, they had to hang on to beat in the Hornets, but since they beat the Pelicans by 12, they beat the Pelicans again by nearly 30. They beat the Magic by 22. They beat the Suns by 17. And last night they beat the Blazers by about 30. So while these aren't measuring stick games for this Nuggets team, the credit you can give them is they're blowing out these teams. Teams that they should blow out, absolutely. But they look like a machine right now. And we'll see what this translates to when they actually take on some other contenders in the NBA. But it's all you can ask of them. And look, it wasn't that long ago that they lost to the Wolves, the Bulls, and the Knicks in 3 straight games. The first time this season that we have seen the Nuggets lose 3 in a row. And they have bounced back in a major way. And perhaps a 3-game losing streak, the first of its kind all year, was the wake-up call this team needed. To say we can't take it for granted, we can't wait any longer. You know, the parallels between the Avalanche and the Nuggets are obvious, right? If this part of the season is when the Avalanche need to be turning it on, the same can be said for the Denver Nuggets, and they are. And we'll see what this form, if they can carry it into the All-Star break. They got to play the Blazers again coming up tomorrow. and then it will be off to the All-Star break. And then they'll get a rest up. Michael Porter should be back on the other side of it. Hopefully, Aaron Gordon is in a little bit better shape with his injury. Nikola Jokic, unfortunately, doesn't get a break, but that's a routine occurrence for him. And we'll see what they are out of the break. But they are dominating these lesser opponents over the past 7 games. And something interesting that popped up last night, again, has to be kept in context given how much of a blowout last night was. Did you happen to notice Calvin's kids last night? Calvin's kids last night kind of showed out. Julian Strawther, playing in place of Michael Porter Jr., had 18 points. Zeke Naji had 11. And Jalen Pickett, who had his career high with 14 points. Yes, it's a game in which everybody ate, and when everybody is playing well, it would be reasonable to say even the young guys that are a little inconsistent in a game like that are going to play well. But something that Michael Malone said last night has stuck with me. Remember when he kind of admitted that he didn't give Jalen Pickett last year a fair shake, didn't give him an opportunity, which you could really extend to every player younger than Christian Brown on this roster. And I thought it was perhaps the start of Michael Malone giving his younger players more of a chance, trying to find times to get them in the game. Didn't really happen. But now he's kind of being forced to, right? No Russell Westbrook, no Michael Porter. So it seems like that's when Michael Malone is willing to play these guys. And to their credit, when they're getting an opportunity, they're showing something, right? Zeke Naji just came off back-to-back games where he won Defensive Player of the Game in both. And Jalen Pickett, when he's been given a chance, has done some things. And same with Julian Strawther, although he's one of the guys that normally gets minutes. And Michael Malone last night was talking about Jalen Pickett. And he said, if not for Russell Westbrook, he'd be in the rotation. Kind of trying to figure out how I'm supposed to take that. Because the plan for the Denver Nuggets, right, this grand Calvin Booth plan was to play the young guys in the rotation. And obviously, one or two of them wouldn't play in the playoffs because the rotation gets tighter. But the idea of the normal rotation, these guys were supposed to be in it. And that was what the Nuggets were banking on to sustain success. And here's Michael Malone saying, hey, if not for Russell Westbrook, Jalen Pickett would be one of these guys I would routinely call on. And so, once again, we have the butting of heads, if you will, between Michael Malone on the floor trying to win basketball games in Calvin Booth's grand plan for sustaining success in Denver. Because here's a player that Michael Malone looks at and says, I can play this guy. He's done enough to earn my trust. But he's too far down on the depth chart to actually get minutes. So it's almost like, well, I wouldn't want the Denver Nuggets to play Russell Westbrook over Jalen Pickett because Russell Westbrook is the better player. I'm not saying that Michael Malone is wrong in sacrificing potential Jalen Pickett minutes to play Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has been a revelation for this Nuggets team. But in order for the Nuggets to stop the bleeding when it comes to their roster, these guys have to be ready to go. This is the entire premise here. And if we're seeing these younger guys play well when Michael Malone's hand is forced, a night like last night makes you pause and go, wait a minute. If these guys can show this in these brief moments, isn't it worth using them more? Isn't it worth finding more minutes? Didn't they earn more minutes by playing like they are? But they don't. When Michael Porter comes back, Julian Strawther goes back to the bench, his minutes go down. When Russell Westbrook is healthy, Jalen Pickett's going to be neither seen nor heard for weeks at a time. Maybe the Zeke Naji thing has some legs just because the Nuggets weren't able to make a move at the deadline for a big man, and even Calvin Booth said this outright. He doesn't want to rely on DeAndre Jordan night in and night out as Nikola Jokic's backup. So perhaps Zeke Naji. But again, all of this is only in case of emergency. And so you fast forward, and I don't know how much longer Russell Westbrook's going to be in Denver, but Jalen Pickett's going to be a player that Michael Malone is seeming to warm up to, is going to be that much further behind. What if after this year they lose Russell Westbrook? It just, even though it feels a bit less contentious this year than it did last year, it's still like this. They can't get on the same page. And by the way, if you're just focused on this year, then the way Michael Malone does it is the right way to go. And I wouldn't blame you, because after as disappointing as last year was, as much as you start to feel the urgency of, okay, the Nuggets need to go back now, I understand that it would be better to play Russell Westbrook than Jalen Pickett. It's just, I've used this metaphor before. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too, right? And to me, I just continue to see this doesn't work. It doesn't work like this. You can't say commit to the young guys and then the head coach won't play them unless he's got 2 or 3 players injured. And you also can't be reasonably pushing for a title in a season and play and take the time to develop these young guys. I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's either or. The Nuggets are trying to thread the needle here and be able to do both, more so than they were last year. Last year, as Michael Malone said, to heck with the young guys. I need the 1 seed. I'm going for it. And certainly the Nuggets paid for that in the end. It seems like they're trying to meet more halfway, but one person's plan almost is counter to the other person's. And I just feel like maybe it's either or. Until the Nuggets absolutely have to make Jalen Pickett their backup point guard, he's not going to get minutes. Until your only other option is DeAndre Jordan at an advanced age for NBA players, you're not going to play Zeke Naji. And Julian Strawther's minutes are going to depend on whether Michael Porter is healthy. And then you just want to, it's getting to the point where Christian Braun is the exception, not the rule. right? Christian Brown, and I won't go down the path of whether he's as good as KCP and all that kind of stuff, but certainly he's a young guy that earned Michael Malone's trust quickly, contributed, got minutes, and has continued to get better. He scored what, 26 points last night? He was fantastic. So whether he's KCP or whether he's his own player, I don't want to get into all that. The fact of the matter is Christian Brown has earned enough trust quickly enough with Michael Malone that he's earned his minutes. These other guys, it's chicken or the egg. Are they not getting minutes because they're not earning Michael Malone's trust, or is Michael Malone's trust too difficult for them to earn to get out on the court? And last night kind of brings it into focus a little bit just because it's not one of those games where you're deciding whether the Nuggets are good enough to win a title. Right? A lot of these games recently, the Nuggets can afford to experiment, can afford to give these young guys some minutes. And if they were playing Boston last night, it would be a completely different story. So it's the most important thing in the vein of keeping the main thing. You got to find out if this team that has won 7 in a row, if they've figured it out, if they're clicking, and if that will translate to when they play OKC, Minnesota, LA, Boston, Cleveland, and whether Jamal Murray can consistently be who you expect Jamal Murray to be and all that kind of stuff. That's the main thing. But nights like last night and many of the nights recently for this team, you see the young guys getting an opportunity because there's no danger in them screwing it up because the Nuggets are up by so much, or they have guys banged up that might going into the All-Star break where Michael Malone is willing to play them. And you just wonder, like, should Jalen Pickett get more minutes? I understand it's difficult with Jamal Murray and Russell Westbrook ahead of him, but do you try to shoehorn some minutes in if you like Jalen Pickett so much? It's just, yeah. It's just an interesting comment from Michael Malone. It's like, well, you went and got Russell Westbrook and you had a guy that could have been Russell Westbrook, could have gotten his minutes and you would have been okay with that. It's kind of weird. But I'll take your thoughts. Of course, we got to get into Nikola Jokic and Will later on in the program because it's insane what he's doing. And I know I say that every day, but it is. It's absolutely bonkers what Nikola Jokic is able to do in 3 quarters. 3-quarter Jokic is becoming a thing. I want to get into that later. In the meantime, your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, the other NBA game of note last night was in Los Angeles as Luka Doncic made his debut, except to me, watching it last night, it was about someone else on the Lakers. It wasn't Luka, and it actually wasn't LeBron. I'll tell you who next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back. The biggest game in the NBA last night was Luka Doncic making his debut for the Lakers, and it's difficult to really, gauge anything how the Lakers are going to be. I was just talking about the Denver Nuggets and how they're demolishing the teams that they played as of late, but I'm looking, it's the Pelicans twice, it's the Suns without KD, it's a Magic team that's struggling, it's the Blazers who were playing good basketball but overall aren't a great team, and you kind of wonder, okay, what does this mean? Does this translate to when it really matters? I can say the same thing for what I saw from Luka and the Lakers last night. Um, I mean, they might as well have just televised a Lakers practice, with all due respect. The Utah Jazz, this is why I'm not in favor of the lottery. One, because I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I think that they do rig it or have rigged it in the past, depending on the situation. But also, I'm watching the Jazz, and they're like, I can't even put into words how terrible that basketball team is. They are so bad. They are so devoid of talent. And I watched it last night, and it just looked like the Lakers were practicing. And I guess in a way that kind of fits because, you know, this is the first game they play together. So there's going to be an acclimation period with Luka and the Lakers. But it's like the Jazz just offered no resistance whatsoever. But anyway, my point about the Jazz is they deserve Cooper Flack. Like, they should just get Cooper Flack. I know there are other teams, and I guess if I watch the Charlotte Hornets on a semi-regular basis, I'd be saying the same thing about them, but at least they have like a piece in LaMelo Ball that you kind of like. The Jazz just have like nothing. It's awful. And that's why if you're as bad as the Jazz, you should just be given the number 1 pick. Okay, who's going to protest that Cooper Flag is going to Utah? Like, if you watch them, it's like they need something. But anyway, so last night felt like like almost a scrimmage because one, the Lakers were facing no resistance, and two, because it's going to take time for us to really see what the Lakers are with LeBron James and Luka Doncic. And you can't forget that Luka hasn't played since Christmas. He got hurt on Christmas and hasn't played. So he was going to be rusty no matter what. And then you throw on top of it the emotion of making his Lakers debut at Crypto. The shooting touch was just not there. It wasn't. It was an inefficient game, and it was kind of nondescript in terms of scoring for Luka. He had 14 points on 5 of 14 shooting, a handful of rebounds, 4 assists, 1 turnover. Tim Legler said it during the broadcast, like the shooting, there's going to be rust, the playmaking, rebounding, that kind of stuff kind of clicks back in immediately. And I think that kind of makes sense when you watch last night's game. It's like Luka was out there working hard, certainly. And his passing and stuff was what it was, but it's going to take a little time just for Luka to look like himself. And then the added layer of what he's going to look like with the Lakers. I don't think you could take the Lakers over Memphis, Denver, or OKC in the West. Those are teams with much more continuity, than the Lakers. And it just reinforced the fact last night when I was watching, like, this is going to take them a while. I remember when the Heatles got together, that looked awful for like 2 months. And there was talk, remember that, they need to fire Eric Spoelstra and bring Pat Riley down from the front office to coach this team to get it right. Thank goodness the Miami Heat did not listen to the angry mob. But I know there's not 3, but Bosch kind of fit in easier with LeBron and Dwayne Wade. The real thing you had to figure out was how LeBron and Dwayne Wade were going to fit together. 2 alphas that have been carrying their teams. And Bosch did that in Toronto, but Bosch's skill set with his defense and his rebounding and the way he gets shots, I think he was going to be the easiest one to fit in. It's going to take time. And there are going to be games where it looks like, okay, it's LeBron's turn. Now it's Doncic's turn. And that's not conducive to success in the playoffs. Like, they got to have a plan here. And they got to be able to mesh together. It's not, you can't have 2 different Laker teams going out there at any given time. And it's Luka's Lakers and LeBron's Lakers. It's going to take some time. And certainly no grand proclamations can be made after last night. Right? Luka didn't even play the full 30 that he was supposed to coming off of the injury because it was a blowout. So I wish I could sit here and say something definitively. I guess I am, that there's no way the Lakers are going to figure this out in time to win 16 games and win a title. I can say that with great confidence. But could they knock off the Nuggets in a 7-game series? Could they beat Memphis? Are they a Western Conference finalist? Are they getting bounced in the first round? I haven't decided yet. I got to see more of it. But I thought one thing about last night that was, I think it was intentional. I think it was. Last night, to me, if you tried to suspend belief or get out of your head a little bit, you knew what last night was about. Every seat had a Luka shirt on it. Like, the broadcast talked about Luka Doncic incessantly. So there were so many things to remind you that it was Luka's big night. But if you just focused on the play on the court and had the TV on mute, you would swear that last night was about Jackson Hayes. Jackson Hayes last night goes 6 for 6 from the field, gets 12 points, not lighting the world on fire, but this is a guy that averages less than 6 points a game. And he had 12. And it looked, and why I say it was intentional, LeBron and Luka, as they were kind of taking turns back and forth, all right, now this is my possession, this is your possession, both, especially early in the game, they were just throwing up lobs to Jackson Hayes. Like, that was the Laker offense. Not a lot of screening, not Luka taking shots. He had one early, and then he kind of just defaulted to playmaking mode. Like, if you didn't know any better, you would think that the focal point of the Lakers offense last night was Jackson Hayes, which sounds preposterous. But get the context of this. Jackson Hayes is next man up after you trade Anthony Davis. Jackson Hayes is who you have to default to now that the Mark Williams trade fell through. Right? It felt intentional to me. Even if the Mark Williams trade wouldn't have fallen through. Let's say the Lakers didn't even go out and get a big man. They got Luka and they said, that's that. We're good to go. I think last night would have looked the same way. I think the Lakers are trying to make Jackson Hayes a thing. They're trying to show like, hey, almost like the Lakers were trying to either send a message or at the very least like show themselves that they can do some things with Jackson Hayes. Because I have no doubt that LeBron and Luka are going to be dynamic together. They're going to figure it out, right? But what the big remaining question is about the Lakers and how viable they are is what you're going to do without a big man. Right? And they tried Dorian Finney-Smith in for Jackson Hayes a lot last night. He wasn't very good, but he has a background with Luka, so perhaps the two of them, the more they get to play together, will find a good rhythm together. But it just looked like JJ Redick, and I wouldn't put it past JJ Redick. Right? You saw him on TV a lot before he became the head coach of the Lakers. Like, would it be crazy if JJ Redick drew up specific plays for Jackson Hayes just as a way to kind of thumb their nose at the critics or kind of thumb their nose at the whole Mark Williams situation where the Lakers think they were duped and the Hornets are now saying that the Lakers they're going to challenge the Lakers' assessment that he failed his physical. Like, there's a lot of finger pointing going on. It would not surprise me if JJ Redick spent energy above and beyond to make sure that Jackson Hayes was an integral part in the Lakers offense. Essentially, he was the link between LeBron and Luka. And they just kept throwing these lobs up to him. It felt like the Lakers were trying to say something. Maybe it's not trolling. Maybe it's just they needed to show themselves and their fans that, hey, this Mark Williams thing fell through. We traded Anthony Davis. Don't worry, we still got it. That's what it felt like to me last night. It felt more about Jackson Hayes and how he fits with the Lakers than Luka. And I suppose that makes some sense, right? Because again, it will take time, but Luka and LeBron are good enough basketball players and great enough playmakers. They'll figure it out at some point. Nobody in their right minds is doubting the fit long term or whatever long term means with LeBron being 40. Nobody doubts that fit moving forward, but you obviously do lose something by getting rid of Anthony Davis. And you yourself, the Lakers, said Jackson Hayes alone wasn't good enough. You went out and got Mark Williams, tried to anyway. It just felt very intentional that they were trying to work Jackson Hayes into things. Their reasons for it, again, I have a few theories, but if I didn't know any better, I would think last night was more about Jackson Hayes than Luka. But I'd like to see more. I see the ideas from JJ Redick with the two of them. I see how the LeBron and Luka interact together on a few occasions last night. I'm intrigued. I certainly want to see more. And the Lakers, I think the Lakers become a wild card in the West. Right? If they figure it out sooner rather than later, obviously they become more dangerous. But they're a dark horse wild card. I feel like I'm not basing that off of one game. I'm just projecting forward. They could be that. It ironically or coincidentally, I should say, a kind of what they've been called for years. right? LeBron and AD don't want to match up with them. They could be sneaky. Never really bought into that. I buy into the idea that LeBron and Luka could be sneaky, of course, as long as Jackson Hayes plays the way he did last night. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Luka's debut and how dangerous you think the Lakers could be with LeBron and Luka together. Coming up next, we'll move to football and Chiefs fatigue. About that, the Super Bowl ratings are in. Tell you about them next. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. The numbers for the Super Bowl are in, and if there was a boycott over Chiefs fatigue, it didn't show up in the numbers because this year's Super Bowl set a new record. Just shy of 128 million people averaged watching that game, surpassing last year's set record. Also, a Super Bowl featuring the Kansas City Chiefs, which teaches us a few different lessons. One, the vocal minority continues to affect the way we perceive things. If you are one of those people who are like, I'm boycotting this Super Bowl, I'm tired of the Chiefs for whatever reason, either because you're sick of them winning or because you think that the referees are rigging the game for them, whatever it might be. The people who said they weren't going to watch the Super Bowl were really loud. Really loud. They were not numerous in numbers, right? And in the age of social media and stuff, we tend to pay more attention to the vocal minority than actually looking at the majority of people, right? So there's that. But the other lesson is, let's not take these numbers and say that this means that everybody loves Kansas City and they're lying. They say they secretly love them and all this kind of stuff. That's not what it means either, because watching the Super Bowl is something that most people do regardless of who's in the game, right? There's so many different reasons to tune in, and a lot of these 127 million people chose to watch for any number just as a social thing, right? And I don't, because I was thinking about this as far as the result. I had somebody ask me yesterday. We had Super Bowl 2 days ago. Today's Tuesday. It was yesterday. Somebody asked me, do you think that some part of Roger Goodell is pleased about the result on Sunday? And my initial reaction was no way. Right? The worst Super Bowl I've ever seen. How could Roger Goodell be even remotely pleased with that result? Do you know the one conversation that we collectively have stopped having? I got one text about it yesterday. That was it. The referees rigging it for the Chiefs. That conversation has completely stopped. And it was not a good look for the NFL. It's not a good look when people are legitimately believing, whether it's the vocal minority or not, legitimately believing that your product is rigged. It's not a good look. Now, I was surprised that both the Referees Association and Roger Goodell both felt compelled to push back against it. I feel like that's something Roger Goodell should answer. It's not something that the referees should be getting into. Right? The referees, either you got to speak all the time or you speak none of the time. Because part of something that would go a long way to smoothing this over is if after a game is over, you sat up there and answered questions like the quarterback or the head coach do. On that 3rd and 8, did you see a holding call on Jawan Taylor? on that fourth down, what did you see as far as Josh Allen? Ask the two referees, right? You were running in from one side, the other guy was running in. Why is the guy that's running in with Josh Allen's back to him making the call and being the ultimate decider of where that football is spotted? Like, we've been asking for more transparency from officials in every sport for years, but these leagues push back against it. They don't want to subject their officials to that line of question. They're supposed to be above it all, right? Which, that's fine, but also don't come out with the statement that you did, calling people that are saying it's rigged buffoons and all of that. They didn't call them buffoons, but that's what they were insinuating. It's like, no. If you're not going to speak when we want you to speak, don't just choose your times to be able to issue a statement going back at everybody who is questioning your official. It doesn't even have to be the rigging thing. Just the idea that there are some questionable calls in a football game. We would love to have the referee in question answer questions from the media, but the leagues don't want to subject them to it. Okay, fine, I may disagree with it, but that's okay as long as you're not putting out statements. You're talking when you want to. That's not how it works. Do the referees have a voice or do they not? So I disagreed with the referees union or whatever it was coming out with that statement. Roger Goodell, I kind of feel like he has to address it at some level. But it was going probably to die down anyway. Right? And now you get a result like this where, nobody wants to hear what DeAndre Hopkins said after the game, but DeAndre Hopkins made some valid points. Everyone, case in point here. This celebration on social media that I have seen for when, I forget which Eagles player it was, just flat out like smacked Patrick Mahomes in the face. And Brady and Hart talked about it during the broadcast. Like, they missed it. That was a missed call that would have given Kansas City a first down. Nobody cared. And in fact, it's being celebrated, the blatant penalty that was committed on Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not saying, hey, that should have been called. And I didn't care about it either at that point. But we're cherry picking all these plays that don't ultimately decide a game and pretending that they do, and it shows a bias, and yet there's this play that Eagles fans are openly celebrating, which is a blatant penalty that was missed. But perhaps part of Roger Goodell is, maybe he doesn't love the extreme that had to happen for that conversation to die down. But I do think some part of him is like, don't have to drag this conversation out another week. Don't have to have this be the lasting conversation, which almost goes counter to the idea that the NFL wants the Chiefs to win. Right? If some part of Roger Goodell is relieved that game was so far out of reach that we don't really care about what calls were made or not, well, but the result went against Kansas City. Thought everybody wanted Kansas City to win. But so the numbers, the ratings don't mean, I mean, certainly they show that people aren't quite as tired of Kansas City as the vocal minority would lead you to believe. Also, watching the Super Bowl does not necessarily mean that you love the Kansas City Chiefs. And also, let's not forget, and this is a little inside baseball, they're counting more people than they used to. They're taking more things into account. So we're going to see these ratings keep going up. So two things can be true at one time. One, that there wasn't this mass boycott over Chiefs fatigue. That certainly is proven, but also doesn't mean that the Chiefs continue to drive people's interest in the NFL. Probably not as much as the Chiefs would like to believe, because they are taking more sources of information into account, and that's why you're seeing these numbers keep going up and up and up. Two things can be true. But man, my big takeaway when I saw those numbers, 127 million people on average were treated to the worst Super Bowl ever. It's tough. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, one, I guess I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. The inevitable conversation coming out of any Super Bowl that Patrick Mahomes plays in, same as any championship LeBron plays in. Yes, it's the GOAT debate. We'll discuss next. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this gorgeous Tuesday. I mean, how about this weather, folks? It is wonderful. Pleasure to have you. You can watch the show live on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube. You know the deal. Um, get to some of your thoughts at 719-247. 1313 coming up momentarily because I think there's some really good points being made on the text line regarding the Super Bowl ratings and what it means as far as Chiefs fatigue or lack thereof. Actually, I'll get to it right now because Tom, I think you make a great point. I don't feel like Chiefs fatigue is I'm not going to watch. I just feel like it's more like go away. Some people made it sound like it was I'm not watching. I'm boycotting. I'm not watching this football team anymore. I'm tired of them. I think you, Tom, and many are in a more reasonable space, which is I'd really like to see them fall. I'd really like to watch them lose. And that is a big reason to tune in, right? You're saying you want to watch them lose because you're tired of them winning. I think that's where most people were. But like in so many other aspects of our lives, the very vocal minority seems to hijack our conversations and it distorts our view of what this actually means. You could be tired of the Kansas City Chiefs and still watch the Super Bowl. And that's kind of a point I've tried to make in weeks past. Like, I think there are a lot of people to phrase it that you want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I get why people would pull back on that notion, but it's you want to see them fall. And the grander the stage they do it, the better. I think that's what we like. I mean, that's certainly as a fan, the way I felt about, the Patriots for their entire reign of terror. Um, Maybe I'm in the minority. I actually didn't want the Bulls to keep winning. Maybe I'm having a Mandela effect. I thought that we were as fans, against dynasties that weren't our team. Am I the only one that wanted the Jazz to beat the Bulls? I'll chalk it up to being young and naive, I guess. I was tired of the Bulls winning. But if you gave me a Jazz Knicks NBA Finals, there's no way I'm watching. There's no way. And that's kind of where it came from. I know people aren't rooting for the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, but if I told you that the Chiefs, especially given what happened on Sunday, you know, you take a little bit more pleasure in seeing a team that you dislike or are tired of lose on a big stage. And I think that certainly is a sentiment held by a lot of people um, after Sunday. And to many people's delight, Patrick Mahomes, GOAT debate's over. He can never become the GOAT. That is what some are saying. I looked here. Did you know that the current GOAT, Tom Brady, through his first 5 Super Bowls, won 3 and lost 2, just like Patrick Mahomes? Did you know that both Brady and Mahomes have thrown the same amount of touchdowns in their first 5 Super Bowls? And Patrick Mahomes has thrown for a few more yards than Tom Brady. So I'm not quite understanding where this, and I saw Josh Hart of the Knicks tweet this out. I don't want to hear any more GOAT debates with Mahomes. Like, whoa, wait. Tom Brady won 3 and lost 2, the same as Mahomes. The numbers in yards and touchdowns are similar. Why is it over? It's not over. But here's the problem. People were trying to have the GOAT debate way too early. And we are in such a hurry to crown the next GOAT. It's like we don't even allow the GOAT to have time. Like Tom Brady just retired, and already people were trying to put Mahomes over that. Tom Brady ruled the sport for 20 years. What are we doing here saying that a decade in, Patrick Mahomes has to be better than Brady, or there's no chance he'll ever be better than Brady? Like, we are so not even close to the point where we can have a legitimate conversation of who's the GOAT, who's the greatest of all time, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. It was an asinine argument to begin with. It would be extremely disrespectful to Tom Brady. And I've seen these people just like you have. It would be, guess what? Mahomes wins yesterday. He's not better than Tom Brady. He's not greater than Tom Brady. Is he more talented than Tom Brady? Yes. Does he have more physical gifts than Tom Brady? Yes. He's not a greater quarterback. Win or lose on Sunday, he's not greater than Brady. This is such a ridiculous argument that people are trying to, because I don't know, because they want Sunday to mean something, that if Mahomes wins, he has to be greater than Brady, and if he loses, he'll never catch Brady. Neither is true. But I think the more ridiculous argument is to say that Patrick Mahomes has no chance at being better than Brady, that we can't even now or ever have the debate. Because the way I've framed it is Patrick Mahomes is on pace to potentially be the greatest quarterback of all time, because we have witnessed the best start in terms of individual and team success that we have ever seen. Right? All Mahomes has done is gotten off to the right pace if he's going to ever supplant Tom Brady. Nowhere, but you can say that and also believe that maybe Mahomes will never get there. But you can't deny that the start that Mahomes has had to his career, we have never seen before. But the start to Mahomes' career isn't even half of Brady's career. So Tom Brady, Chiefs win or lose on Sunday, regardless of how Patrick Mahomes plays, Tom Brady still wakes up on Monday as the greatest quarterback to ever live. Mahomes has got a long way to go, but it's equally ridiculous to disqualify him based on what happened on Sunday. But I know why people are saying it. This is what if you just take apples to apples, right? Not Tom Brady's entire career versus Mahomes' entire career. Take first 5 Super Bowls from Brady, first 5 Super Bowls from Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has thrown for more yards. He's thrown for more touchdowns. He's won just as many Super Bowls as Tom Brady. And if he would have won on Sunday, he would have more Super Bowls in his first 5 than Brady did. This is what people, either because they're looking at the numbers or they're just watching on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes has in Super Bowls a lower floor than Brady does. When Patrick Mahomes, and by extension, the Kansas City Chiefs have been bad in Super Bowls, they have been really bad. Right? Tampa, the Super Bowl against Tampa, the Chiefs were really bad. They got their butts kicked. And Sunday, they got their butts kicked again. And in those two Super Bowls, you have seen Patrick Mahomes get a little bit careless with the football, try a little too hard. And when he's trying, because the Chiefs are down by so many points so early, he tries to, and this is a mistake on Patrick Mahomes' part. I think he was trying to score 14 points every time he touched the football once Philly got out to the start they did. Well, the rules of football do not allow that. You got to score 7 at a time. You got to be a little bit more patient. You got to take what the defense gives you. And I do think that while the bulk of the blame for Sunday can be put on the Chiefs' offensive line or credit given to Philadelphia's defensive front, there were times where Mahomes held on to the football too long. There were times when Mahomes forced the football into that zone coverage that the Philadelphia Eagles were playing. So when we've seen the worst of Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, it's been worse than any performance we've seen from Tom Brady in a Super Bowl. And that's what people are reacting to. Tom Brady has 2 interceptions through his first 5 Super Bowls. Mahomes has 6. So the bad of Mahomes has been worse than anything we've seen from Tom Brady. And either that can be statistics or that can just be the eyeball test. When it's gotten ugly in these 2 Super Bowls, it's gotten really ugly for Mahomes and the Chiefs in a way that we never saw with Tom Brady, right? When Tom Brady loses, some dude catches a ball on his helmet. When Patrick Mahomes loses, he gets pummeled and throws multiple interceptions. And that's what I think is behind a lot of people saying it was so bad on Sunday that forget the GOAT conversation. We can't have it, which is wrong because we absolutely can and may very well one day. In fact, what am I talking about one day? The next Super Bowl Patrick Mahomes gets into, we're going to have the conversation again. And we do the same thing with LeBron James. Now, it's been a while since he's been in a championship, right? 2020. But we revisit it every time we check on it. And I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with are the conclusions that people are drawing. The people going into the Super Bowl saying that Mahomes has a chance to supplant Tom Brady with a victory, which is preposterous. But equally preposterous are the people after the fact saying Patrick Mahomes can never catch Tom Brady. If I were a betting man, do I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have the success over the long term that Tom Brady has? No, I don't. I don't believe that he will surpass Tom Brady. But to say it's ridiculous to even bring it up, it's like Patrick Mahomes has had the best start to an NFL career we have ever seen. And if that's the case, then yeah, if this happens every, 7 years, if he gets another 7 years like this, look at where that puts him. If Patrick Mahomes has another 7 years like he's had so far, he's absolutely going to be in the conversation with Tom Brady. But we are so quick to crown and we are so quick to disqualify. It's like, no, I think we need to give Mahomes more time. Because a lot of the numbers between him and Brady, similar. It's just people are reacting viscerally to another poor performance from Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and saying Tom Brady would never. Yeah, I mean, that's right. Because Tom Brady really never crashed out in a Super Bowl the way that Mahomes has. But is that enough to disqualify Patrick Mahomes, especially when the offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, bears more responsibility and the Eagles' defensive front deserves more credit for the struggles of Mahomes? Yeah, there were some bad decisions. But I would look to other places before I would point the finger at Patrick Mahomes and saying, "You did this, you failed, you'll never catch Brady." Yeah, he probably won't catch Brady, but he's on pace to still, even after Sunday's game. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. The mind starts to wander. What debate are we going to put Nikola Jokic in before all is said and done? Who are we going to be discussing? Because he's already at Wilt. Is there a chance he's ever going to be in the LeBron James, Michael Jordan conversation? I don't know. Be interesting to see. That's not the conversation I want to have. Right? I don't want to get into a GOAT debate about Nikola Jokic. I do want to get into just how ridiculous it is what Nikola Jokic now seems to do on a semi-regular basis, and he did it again last night. Welcome back. Nuggets last night with another blowout victory over the Portland Trailblazers, a team that had come in winning, I think, 10 of 12. So they were playing really good basketball over with Chauncey Billups at the helm, but man, they are no match right now. The Nuggets are just bullying the lesser teams in the NBA, and that's what it is, right? So everything that the Nuggets are doing right now, I don't want to say you have to put a caveat on it, but you need to understand who they're doing this against and saying, all right, it's like the Avalanche when they were picking on a lot of bad teams, but they're racking up wins. Great, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, rack up wins, get near the top of the standings, and then you hope that what you're doing, how well you're playing, translates to when you go up against the best teams in your league. And what we saw with the Avalanche is they built themselves up with a lot of wins against lesser teams. They ran into the really good teams and they didn't do well. And then the Mikko Rantanen trade happened. The reset button kind of got hit. Avalanche had to figure some things out. And now they're playing well and coming off of a great win. You want to talk about a perfect win to go into the Four Nations break on. That win against Edmonton, that's a big win. So, and the Nuggets will have their time where they'll go up against a team. I think they play the Lakers pretty soon. That would qualify. The Thunder, I know they play Boston at the beginning of March. So right now, it's good on the Nuggets for doing what they should be doing, which is blowing out lesser teams. And let's marvel at some of the numbers they're putting up, right? Michael Porter, the heater that he went on, and Nikola Jokic last night. And if there's the most real thing about what you're seeing with the Denver Nuggets over their 7-game win streak is anything Nikola Jokic does, right? He's earned that to say that's him. That can exist, right? This Michael Porter scoring 30 a game, I don't know how sustainable it is. But Nikola Jokic doing what he does, I think it's real because he does it to everybody. Last night, he scores 40. And he doesn't play the entire fourth quarter. This has happened so often. Normally, it's with the triple doubles. About mid-January, and I think this number still holds up. Nikola Jokic has I think it's a dozen. Yes, 12 times this season. Nikola Jokic has gotten a triple-double in 3 quarters. Last night, he scored 40 in 3 quarters. And if you want a good way to grade on somewhat of a curve, the fact that Nikola Jokic puts up MVP caliber numbers in 3 quarters, he doesn't even need the whole game to put up these numbers. Now, it's not every night. 13, 14, 15 games does not a season make. But the amount of times that Nikola Jokic puts up numbers that you would point to and say those are MVP caliber numbers, and he does it in 3 quarters and takes the fourth quarter off. It'd be one if he had to go a full 4 quarters and put up 40, you could look at it and be like, it was the Blazers. So let's, put it in its proper context. But what if he does it against the Blazers in only 3 quarters? What if he puts up a triple-double in 3 quarters against a lesser team? I kind of feel like that translates to 4 quarters against a good team. I don't know. I haven't found a conversion chart anywhere. But the fact that Nikola Jokic puts up MVP caliber numbers and then sits the entire fourth quarter, it's remarkable. And the battle lines are starting to be drawn when it comes to the MVP narratives. Okay, and the anti-Shea argument is free throws. Right? His numbers, his scoring numbers are inflated because he gets to the free throw line so much. Now, there are levels to this. Okay, I have not seen as many games or highlights in which Shea acts as a free throw merchant the way James Harden and Joel Embiid do. So I think there's a little bit of nuance to this. I don't want to put Shea exactly in that conversation, but you look at his numbers, yes, he's doing it with a ton of free throws. We have to be able to separate, legitimate, hey, you just can't do anything to defend me and you're fouling me. Like, that's worthy of an MVP. If Shea is such a difficult guard that teams are just like, to heck with it, we're just going to mug this guy on his way to free. Well, those are 2 free throws that are well earned. Right? I don't see Shea falling to the floor the way that Joel Embiid does. I don't see him doing the things that James Harden does, the little ticky-tack things. He's doing them for sure some of the time, but not to the extent that these other guys do. So we have to be fair and say, are every one of those, where's the threshold where you become a free throw merchant and you just eliminate anything? Like, your free throws are completely illegitimate. I think there are some pretty legitimate free throw numbers in there for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So I would hate for people to just write him off in the same vein that they do Joel Embiid and James Harden, because I watch Shea and I don't see him doing that. Every NBA player flops. Like, here's the sad fact of it all. Everybody, including Nikola Jokic, flops. Nikola Jokic tried to draw a foul. There was a perfect example last night where Nikola Jokic blatantly tried to draw contact, where if he just would have went up for a normal shot, would not have drawn a foul. He initiated contact, and because he's such a freak, he made the shot anyway. But he was absolutely baiting for a foul. So let's not pretend that even Nikola Jokic doesn't do this from time to time. But it balances out because there are a lot of times where he gets fouled and it's not called. But you're going to see people discount the numbers Shea Gilgeous-Alexander puts up, especially scoring, because that's really the one thing he has over Nikola Jokic. When you look at the numbers, Nikola Jokic kind of has Shea beat everywhere else. So if you can go at Shea and say, well, his scoring numbers are inflated because he's a free throw merchant, well, that helps win the argument when it comes to Nikola Jokic being more deserving, because that's what Shea has over Nikola Jokic right now. But I think a more because I would really like to get to the point where we're not tearing somebody down to build somebody else up. I'm not saying that I do this all the time, but it would be the ideal scenario where we don't have to crush Lamar Jackson to make the case for Josh Allen being the MVP. Let's try to make a strictly pro Jokic argument instead of an anti SGA one. How about the fact that Nikola Jokic puts up MVP numbers in 3/4 of games on a semi-regular basis? I feel that's not even mentioning SGA. That's simply bringing up Jokic in 3/4 does more than many, not singling anyone out, than many players do in 4/4 or sometimes 4/4 and overtime. That is a pro Jokic argument. The number of games that he has been able to sit and watch the game like the rest of us in the fourth quarter while still putting up an insane stat line that makes him the best player in that game, I feel like is a very good argument to win MVP. 12 times he's had triple doubles through 3/4. And last night he put up 40 and then sat in the fourth quarter. I don't want to be accused of being sacrilegious, but I feel like there's a t-shirt idea in here. And in the fourth quarter, Jokic rested. In the fourth quarter, Jokic rested. See, I'm not great at these things. I feel like there's something there. And that's just free. I didn't trademark it. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I feel like it's becoming a thing that Nikola Jokic puts up insane numbers through 3/4 and sits in the fourth quarter. You might run the risk of being a little sacrilegious, but there's a t-shirt idea and a few shekels in it for you if you were to go to the printing press with it. I will not. I got enough on my plate. I don't need to be making t-shirts as well. 719-24/7, 13-13. 40 points, fourth quarter, not necessary. We'll take a break. More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports here on Extra Sports 1300. Let's go to the text line. A couple of your thoughts at 719-247-1313. We're just talking about flopping, being a foul merchant. And Brett says, you're right, Ryan. Everybody flops. Even quarterbacks can flop. Would you agree? Can you think of any specific recent examples of this that I can look up on YouTube? Asking for a friend, I'll hang up and listen. Well, you text in, so you never were on the line to begin with. Yes, I have a list here. Gardner Minshew, Bo Nix, huge flopper at the quarterback position. Just in the AFC West, I mean, you got three. Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, and Gardner Minshew. And then there's, interestingly enough, four quarterbacks that flop in every other division. The AFC West only has three. It's really weird. I can't quite figure out why that would be. So really, I'm telling you, you can't go wrong. As long as you're not typing in Patrick Mahomes, you type in the name of any other quarterback in the NFL, and you will find all sorts of flopping highlights. You will not with Patrick Mahomes. And I'm starting to get the sense that that's what you're insinuating, and I don't understand why. It's not like there's a high-profile example of that in a recent game in the playoffs where Patrick Mahomes blatantly flops to try and get a flag thrown. I don't know what you're talking about. All I think of when I think of Mahomes is getting smacked in the face by an Eagles defender and everybody celebrating that on social media. So clearly there's a victim in all of this, and his name is Patrick Mahomes. Tucker says, remember what you said about Reed resting all his players in the Denver game? Well, it didn't work out for him. Dumb move resting everyone. Oh, yeah, about that. Can I blame Sunday's loss on Andy Reid resting everybody? No, I think that just applied for the first game. That's what where I framed it. You know, if they the fact of the matter was that this Kansas City team and the AFC by extension, right? Like we have to look at it. You think a different fate, like Josh Allen would have had a different fate. This is what the credit we have to give the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know in the playoffs, matchups matter, okay? But the Eagles are a bad matchup for everyone. The Eagles' defense is a bad matchup for anyone. Yes, against a player like Patrick Mahomes, they're an especially difficult matchup for him because of the Vic Fangio defense. But as I said yesterday, Fangio was just ahead of the game when he was in Denver. Everybody runs that shell Tampa 2 high safety, whatever you want to call it. Everyone does that now. On not just Mahomes, but every quarterback that can take the top off of a defense. Credit I was giving Fangio is that he was ahead of the curve in all of this. And he did a lot of different stunts and called for a lot of different stunts and everything up front to make that front four more effective and be able to get through and get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. But here's the reality of it. Kansas City was clearly the most worthy team to represent the AFC, right? The mistakes that Buffalo made, how they shot themselves in the foot, like that's what Kansas City has been in the AFC for a couple years now, right? Is this kind of stress test that, hey, we're not going to do anything to beat ourselves. Are you? And we see teams time and time again make those mistakes. It's not discounting how good Kansas City is. That makes them the best team in the AFC. But I got news for you. If you think that Buffalo would have fared any better, if Houston, if Denver, if it was Sean Payton saying they had confidence that they would beat the Kansas City Chiefs, well, I'd like to see them go up against the Eagles. I think that's the reality, is that the Eagles were not just the best team in the NFL, which I think we can all agree. I think they were better by a sizable margin. Because the Chiefs were worthy of representing the AFC. But they were not worthy this year of hoisting the Lombardi. I think Philly would have done that to pretty much every team in the AFC. So I'd love to blame Andy Reid for resting players against the Broncos. I mean, I didn't like it. I'll say that. Didn't agree with the decision, but I was just saying if this cost them in the next game. I was looking through, I never do this. I never make a wager on next year's anything, right? This early. Day after a Super Bowl, 2 days after the Super Bowl, no way, right? I got to see the offseason. I saw a number that jumped out to me. I said, this is too good. I have to get this. Do you know the San Francisco 49ers are 15-1? They are Super Bowl odds for next year. The 49ers are almost an afterthought. This is from ESPN Bet, which is not where I made my bet, but they're all fairly similar, right? Give or take. Kansas City and Baltimore on ESPN Bet are the co-favorites at plus 650. Philadelphia, Buffalo, and Detroit are all plus 700, 7-1. The San Francisco 49ers are 14-1. And I said that is too good. That is too good. I can't not get that number. Because how quick, and I talked about this yesterday when ESPN put out their power rankings, how quickly we forget. How quickly we forget just how good, if healthy, San Francisco is. And look, there's a risk associated with it. It is gambling for a reason. But if the San Francisco 49ers are healthy, and I don't know what happens with Deebo Samuel, I'd only feel marginally worse about my bet for the San Francisco 49ers next year if they trade Deebo. They had, and my kids love this, these books and this, a series of unfortunate events. Like, that could be the name of the San Francisco 49ers season. They had so many things go wrong to the point that everyone forgot about them. They were just in the Super Bowl. And shouldn't the Eagles be kind of a blueprint here? The Philadelphia Eagles lost the Super Bowl, had a down year, and what did everybody do? Dismiss them. Right? Not completely write them off. I think I had the Eagles winning the NFC East, but I don't think that, certainly the opinion that we currently have of the Philadelphia Eagles was not the opinion that was widely held going into the year, right? And it's because they had taken a step back. the previous year. They lost the Super Bowl and then they lost their coordinators and it was kind of a mess and people wanted people fired and all this kind of stuff. And then a year later, Eagles bounce back, they figure it out, they get their coordinators and they end up winning the Super Bowl. We are so quick to just forget teams. And I'm looking at power rankings, I'm looking at lines, and I'm like, too many people are not talking about the San Francisco 49ers. They had so many things go wrong. There is no way that next season is going to be as bad as this year. There's no way. And when things aren't terrible for the 49ers, where do they end up? NFC Championship, Super Bowl. I mean, give the Eagles their flowers, and I'm okay with the Eagles being the team to beat in the NFC. I'm okay being with them being one of the favorites. I think certainly, I talked about this yesterday, I'd certainly put the Eagles above the Lions. But this is all going to change. And this is part of the thing with sports betting, right? Like part of it is you try to beat the number, right? You get in on it now at 15-1. And then when everybody, kind of starts looking around the league, they'll be like, oh, yeah, the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey's healthy. They still have Nick Bosa. They still have Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh. One of the bigger additions to any team this offseason is going to be Robert Saleh being the defensive coordinator again for the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are coming back next year with a vengeance. Am I promising or guaranteeing that they're going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl? No. But if you look at the odds and some of the way too early prognostications, you would forget that the 49ers existed. Like this has been the team in the NFC. Like the Chiefs have been the team in the AFC. The standard of excellence, and I know that's used by another organization that is far from the standard of excellence right now. But I saw that number and I'm like, I got to have this. And we'll see how I feel about that wager once we get closer to the season and what happens with Debo and what other NFC teams do to improve. But I already said I know I'm going to be less high on Detroit than everybody is this coming year. I may be higher on the 49ers than most people are. I saw them at 15-1. ESPN bet they're 14-1. I saw where I went at 15-1. I was like, oh, I have to do it. I cannot stress this enough. I never make NFL bets for next season the day after the Super Bowl. Never do. Because I hate the uncertainty of we have an entire offseason. I saw that number, I had to do it. I had to do it. Not telling you to do it. I'm just telling you what I did. So, apparently I am driving the 49ers bandwagon for next year. I have run out of time. I am going up to Laramie to call Air Force women's basketball tomorrow night. So no show tomorrow. Frank Saratori's show coming up at 6 o'clock. So tune in for that. It will be a joyous occasion at Rib and Chop House. Enjoy your evening. And I will talk to you, if not tomorrow night, for Air Force women's basketball against Wyoming. I'll talk to you when I'm back in the Springs on Thursday here on Extra Sports 1300.